Okay.
In the first place, those people who were drawn to the computer weren't afraid of they were going to lose their creativity. The people who didn't get drawn to the computer were afraid that they would lose their creativity. Secondly, the idea of artificial intelligence was almost unknown, and I think you'll find that of all of the early people in the game, I was about the only one
Who knew about it?
who not only knew about it, but saw that as the goal.
Okay.
That my goal in the first place was to have a machine that could function without a human being.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I started with the idea of machine autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
So I was drawn, not even knowing about artificial intelligence, in fact.
Okay.
I was trying, as I said, I started by trying to model how the human brain was working, how the mind was working. After I'd been working on my own for 3 years, I was actually invited up as a guest scholar to the Artificial Intelligence Lab at Stanford University, and became not exactly part of the mainstream, but I was like the token artist in the artificial intelligence community. But I was the only person at that point. Frieda came in from physics. He wasn't part of the art world at all. He knew nothing at all about the art world. So he started from an entirely different position, facing in an entirely different direction to me, to anybody else. Herbert Franke, as you said, was fascinated. Oh, look, we can do this and we can do that and we can do the other. But in the sense that all things are equal.
Mm-hmm.
Everything equals everything else. If it's new, it's great. I never had that kind of freedom. I always felt much more constrained. I had a very clear goal of having a machine program that could emulate what human beings do.
Well, the thing is that the computer was such a shock to people in the art world that, I mean, articles which were written afterwards got thrown out of the magazine because they were a computer. Mm-hmm. It's because it's a fundamental idea that art has to be individual, you know, cannot be dedicated to somebody else, delegated to somebody else. And until this idea became, nowadays nobody has a problem with that, you know. It takes years and years of accepting certain things, you know. Then came the cybernetic art, you know, where people built machines, but these are machines which people could dominate, you know, like Tangeli and this kind of machines. It's fun, it's interesting, because the human has this problem. A human being always wants to be above and laugh. If a machine doesn't work, it wants, look, it's only a machine. But if a machine is better than him, he gets crazy. You know, and the machine, the computer calculates faster, better, without errors. If it makes an error, it's so obvious that it's an error, but normally it doesn't make errors. So that a human being, or the human beings get crazy, you know, because they can't dominate. They cannot laugh and say, it's computer. Suddenly it dominates the human, you know. And they got afraid of this machine. That's why the rejection that art cannot be involved in that, because that destroys the art, you know. And only through cybernetics and then logical art. In the 60s there was all systematic art which came up. People turned squares and things, no simple things. And made, like from the Russian constructivists, it became the next step a systematic art. The people invented simple systems, you know, like counting 1, 2, 3, 4, making lines thicker and thicker, or from grey to dark. And all that contributes that at one point the computer could be integrated. But it was a very long path. And I even, for example, one day when I worked in the Institut Météorologique at Paris, every night and so on, one night I invited a very important gallery guy, directly, he wanted to see because I showed him this gallery before. So he came, and it's quite impressive. It's a computer room was bigger than this loft here, noisy, and, there's some
Big
stuff.
mainframes.
So so when he came in, at the door open, he put his jacket and pull out the tie. So I could not believe it that it's like he's meeting a director or somebody. It's just a computer. It's such a beautiful shock, He didn't realize that I saw it. It moved me,
Well, the truth is, and this is part of the reason why I'm painting now. I think I came to the conclusion not so very long ago, 2 years ago, that the goal of an absolutely autonomous art-making machine, or simply any machine that can exist in a human domain, has a very, very long way to go before it's actually capable of the kind of things that human beings do. I think the most important thing to realize in all of this discussion is that a machine is not a human being. It doesn't mean that it can't do things that human beings do, but it does not do them in the same way that human beings do them. That became, that was an insight that was very important to me, because I'd spent some years trying to understand how to get the computer to handle color. And I, as a painter, I had a reputation for being a rather good colorist. I couldn't figure out how to do it. As long as I was trying to get the machine to do what I did, there was simply a brick wall in the way.
Okay.
And it happened at about the same time that the big blue was beating Kasparov at chess, and I realized that yes, chess was always in the AI community. Chess was always considered to be the game par excellence. If you could get a machine to play chess, that would be a proof of its intelligence. But it turned out, in fact, that the machine did not play chess the way Kasparov played chess. Right? It had its own strategies that were completely different. For one thing, rather brute force, it was capable of playing out the game 20, 30, 40 moves in advance, which a human being doesn't do. So at that point I thought, well, why don't I try and build a program for colouring based on what the computer is capable of doing, and which, by the way, a human being isn't capable of doing. That is to say, constructing a stable model in the head, or in the computer's memory. So it turned out that once I abandoned the idea that the machine had to do things the way a human being did them,
Interesting.
I was able to break through the problem. Aaron is still the only program in the world that is capable of functioning as a colorist. So as I said, I think the key, and this is still trying to answer the question you asked, the most important thing to realize is that a computer is not a human being. It will never, I believe, never perform on a sort of
For example, there was once somebody said, for years I was trying to draw like, whatever, Giotto or something, and suddenly I realized I cannot draw like him. I can only draw like I can draw. And since that moment on, I got my own language. Once you realize that what you do, that's your maximum you can go, And that's what you can do, you know? That's what you do. You don't have to imitate somebody else's rules, because then it's not you. You have to go so far as what you can do. I cannot do that. It's stupid to learn to do that, you know? So in this sense, Plato, he said, if you can teach the art, it's not art anymore. You know? Because then you know too much about it. You have to invent it, you know, and you have to invent the rules with it. But when you teach it, then it's just routine. Then it becomes entertainment or whatever.
Paul Klee, I just liked to look at his pictures. Most of the time, or most amongst them, he has so many different expressions. Those drawings, with just black lines, clearly, because I wanted to study them, and in some way I thought, now could I extract something from there? I never tried to simulate. I didn't do this, but I tried to get some inspiration from there, knowing, or at least I assumed, it is stupid to simulate this, because he has done it much better, much quicker, much more secure than anything. But to get some inspiration from what how Klee was drawing, that was intriguing.
Georg asked me, can your computer make a, so to speak, personal hand script, what the artist has? Ductus. Can your computer make a ductus? And I said in this colloquium, if you can exactly describe what is a ductus, that we can transform it into a program. He was, I would say, very fair, Georg. Well, and after a time, Benze took the word and said, gentlemen, what you see here is a sort of künstliche Kunst. So we ended the colloquium in peace. Benze would like to say, this is a special art. We should not think of it as exactly the old art. This is something new and something other. It is künstlich as machines are. Machines are künstlich. In this sense, this is an art which is künstlich. Künstlich as an automaton. That's the one part. But who makes the program has to put his thoughts into the program. So it is Kunst, but it is künstliche Kunst.